going to show you one of the useful functions, unique. It's not something I use all the time, but it is quite handy to know it exists. So I've got a list of categories here, and the reason why they're all duplicates is because I just copied this column here, and obviously there was an individual entry for each of these parts. Just got the filter on here. What I want is just this unique list here. I can just type equals unique, open bracket, and then just select Control Shift arrow down. That's my array. That's all I need. It's an array function. It spills this result. With this function, I don't need to really worry about any cell referencing. I just select that range there. It's bringing the answer here and just kind of spilling it down. So the formula is just in this top one here, but you can see it's grayed out here. So I can't really just delete this. But if I delete here, it would delete the whole formula. So there's my list. If I don't like it in this box, I can copy and paste it. So I could Control C, and I can either paste it somewhere else or just on top of itself. So therefore I have then just got those unique values there. What I might want to do in this formula, I can actually wrap it in sort so it's in alphabetical order. So my array is the unique formula. I'm going to ignore that. I'm just going to say ascending. And there you've got it in alphabetical order. I tend not to use this that often. I'm just going to delete that for now, because there is, under the data tab, there's a remove duplicates. My cursor was already in this data, so it's automatically selected this column here. So it's automatically selected the correct data. Okay. Okay. So there are my unique categories. If I go to home, I could also just sort them A to Z. Another way, and it's probably the way I would use, is to insert a pivot table. Pivot tables automatically aggregate data. So let's just go to insert pivot table. You should probably check, but that looks right to me, that range, that it's automatically selected. I'm just going to put it here so we can see it on existing worksheet. Okay, let's move along. So all I need to do is just add the category to the rows. And there's my unique list, and pivot tables automatically put it in alphabetical order. So that's probably what I would do. I'm just going to show you how I might use unique with data validation. I've got a whole video on data validation, so I recommend you look at that first. Data validation is where you have a drop-down list. So I've got my unique categories here, and I want a drop-down list on those, so I can just select them. So I can go here, data validation, list, and here my source is these, or I could manually type them and separate them by a comma. So when I click on here, I've then got a drop-down list where I can make these selections. I could then have a formula or a chart feeding off of this. Every time I change my selection, my data updates just based on that category. The issue I have is I might want a dependent data validation. I might want to say, when I select this, I want another selection here, which shows me all the part descriptions in that category. So I could do a data validation here. Data validation, list, and my source is going to be these. So I've just got this really long list. You can see the electronic components there. But when I get down to the bottom, I've got the hardware and the IT stuff. I don't really want that. I want, when I select IT, for this to only bring me up the IT options. So that's a dependent data validation. So this doesn't really work. So I'm just going to delete all of that. I'm going to end up having my drop-down list here, but I need to just have some helper columns here. I have this set up as a table. You can see, because when I click on it, I've got that table design option there, which wouldn't be there if this wasn't a table. I just had the data set there, and I just pressed Control T to create a table out of this data. So here I'm going to use my unique function. I'm probably going to wrap it in sort afterwards. My array is my category. Control Shift arrow down, enter. I would like it in alphabetical order. So if I just go to the top cell where my formula is, sort, and there are my options. Here I'm going to add the data validation, the drop down list that relates to this. what I'm going to do, I'm not sure if you've just seen this before, if you've used data validation, go in my source, and I'm just going to click on the first cell and then use hash. Okay, there are my options. At the moment it's not doing anything, I've not got anything linked to this. The reason why I put the hash there is because I want to spill the results. If I add something here, equipment, this has now been added here, and it now appears here. So any additions are going to be included in this. This is linked to this data set here. Obviously I would have that hidden, or maybe even on a separate tab. I wouldn't really have this as part of it, but I want it all on one sheet so I can show you what's going on. So every time I pick one of these, I want the drop down for all the part descriptions, but only if they're in the category that I selected here. I'm going to use a function called filter. I do have another video on that, but don't worry too much. You might be able to work out what's going on as I go through it. So now I want to bring in my part descriptions here, but I want to filter them to whatever category is chosen over here. Equals filter, and my array is my part descriptions. Control Shift arrow down, comma, so filter. So the include is a bit like an if statement or some sort of criteria that needs to be met. I want to pull in all the part descriptions, that's that data there, if they meet whatever I'm going to type in here. So where my category equals this. I should just be able to close that. So here are all my part descriptions. You can see these are the consumer electronic ones. Let me just go to ones that have got less in. So the IT there, and the equipment, the one I just added generator to there. So whichever one of these I select, that's coming up there. So I'm filtering this where this equals this. But again, if you want more detail on that, I've got a filter video. So I can now add my data validation here for the part description. Data validation, list, and I'll do the same here. I'll pick the first cell and I'm going to spill it. So you can see this list is going to be whatever comes up here because these are linked. And let's try on a smaller one so you can see the IT. So then I can just pick one of these. So where this might be useful if you were to have a chart or just some totals here. So I could say equals sum ifs, and my sum range would be this, my values, and my criteria range will be the category. I'm going to do two different ones. The category and the criteria is this. So at the moment, this is just the category. So if I go down, I could filter this, but it's going to then remove this. So if I just go down to IT and I add up all of these, it's 299. So I was just doing a sum ifs of the category IT. I'm now going to do it where I'm going to do the sum ifs on the part description. So hopefully we'll get some of these figures back. So here, if I do equals sum ifs, and I could say again the sum range, Control Shift arrow down, comma, and the criteria range is where this, and the criteria is this. So that was right. I remember that being correct. 38 for keyboards, and we'll just look at one more. Monitors 15. So 38 for keyboards, 15 for monitors. Keyboards 38, monitors 15. You could have a whole table here and a chart relating to all this depending on what you're picking here. So let me just do electronic components and pick the first one. So it's 41. It's putting that back for that, and you can see you've got the whole list here, which is my drop down here, and just picking one, demodulators 36. And it should be that the whole electronic components adds up to this. I'm actually just going to filter here. So it's 7507. And then if I just click on there, 7507, there are all my electronic components. So that all works nicely. Control Shift L to clear my filters.